ideas have consequences and bad ideas have bad consequences. Because think about this. If you have this idea, this philosophy, I am my thoughts, what happens when you acquire mental illness, when you have depression, where your thoughts go wrong? Well, I have a practical example of this where I had a student who's an older student. I mean, not, he's younger than me, but he was, by university standards, a little bit older. And he had served in the Afghanistan war and had lost most of his platoon. And his friends that he did not lose in the war, he lost when coming back, and they committed suicide because of PTSD. And this is not an uncommon story. In fact, more people die from their own hands in suicide than actually the casualties in the war. And obviously you can imagine the type of toll that this took on him. And speaking with his parents, that he had spent the last 2-3 years in a fetal position on his floor, screaming and crying, and he couldn't get out of the house apart from going to the VA, which just pumps you full of medications that just make it worse. And he told me that none of this stuff was working. It was his first semester out, and he's taking Dr. Sorm's Intro to Philosophy class. And I remember going over this lecture, and we were talking about the topic, eudaimonia, as happiness, as not being associated with feeling. I was contrasting this with kind of modern notion that you are whatever you think you are. You hear this? You know what? If you have a biological body of a man, but you think inside your head that you are a woman, then that's what you are. You are whatever you think you are. You want to be a goat, right? I guess the only thing that you're not allowed to be is another race, right? Guys, I'm self-identifying as, I don't know, well, let's see. Let's pick a different, whatever the different race is. You can't do that, right? These people don't have a principled position whatsoever. But it doesn't keep them pushing these ideas. Where do they come from? They come from bad principles. That, it's just another form of Gnosticism. That if you are identified with your feelings, if you are identified simply, I am my thoughts, that's who I am, gender is not biological, it's whatever I think it is, it's what I feel, then it's completely relative. There is no objective standard you can be. Now, nobody can live this out consistency, because then what are they going to do? If you disagree with that, they're going to start all of a sudden becoming an objectivist. You're objectively, morally incorrect. But I want to go, you're all familiar with this conversation, but I want to go into the mental health realm, because, I'm an advocate for mental illness. I'm part of NAMI, and I've worked with a lot of people suffering from mental illness. And one of them was my student. And, it's interesting, if you've ever experienced depression, clinical depression, or known somebody that's experienced clinical depression, when they are having bad thoughts, when they're not feeling good, when they're melancholic, what do they think about themselves? Who they are? They don't think that they're good or any value. Now think about this in terms of the mentally ill and those who suffer from clinical depression and other mental illnesses. If you're promoting a philosophy and ideology that you are your feelings and that you are your thoughts, what are you telling the people? What message are you giving them when you say, when they're undergoing clinical depression and they're feeling terrible about themselves when their thoughts have gone awry. The message you're sending them is, you're not a valuable person. You've gone awry. But from an orthodox anthropology, and even going back to Aristotle, we know we're much more than our thoughts. We're not whatever we feel that we are, whatever we think we are. And so this is a demonic ideology that has very, very negative consequences, especially, not only in the moral realm, where everybody can pick whatever they want and now how many genders there are, but within the realm of mental health and those who are suffering, that we are not helping them by saying, you are your thoughts and your thoughts have gone bad and so you're just a bad person. Like that's all you are. And when we're going over this conversation, I could see that my student who had suffered from this just had this kind of eureka moment and spoke to me after class. And he said, Professor, I can't tell you out of all the years of therapy at the VA what they couldn't do, you were able to do in just this one class. Because he was associating himself with his thoughts. I am my thoughts, and my thoughts are bad, and therefore I'm a bad person. And to be able to hear that eudaimonia isn't essentially feelings or thoughts, but human flourishing, and that one could flourish and be well, and be truly happy, and feel bad. One could undergo depression and still be an objectively good human being, had completely changed and overthrown his previous worldview and began to heal him. So we have to think about these. It's not just an intellectual game that we're just going, well, what intellectual paradigm? I want to take the Cartesian, or I want to take... It's not an intellectual game. It has actual pragmatic and very, very real consequences in people's lives. And so as clergy, this is why I'm concerned with ideas, knowing what bad ideas are, what bad arguments are, and what good arguments are, and what truth is distinguished from falsehood. Because primarily the reason is it's not an intellectual game. It's because I'm ultimately concerned with people's lives out of love for all human beings, and I want to heal people. And I can't heal people, and none of us can heal people, if we're giving them bad medicine, things that are making them sick. Think about an addict. Is it loving to give them what they want, what makes them feel good? It's not loving, but this is what the modern world gives. And so I think there's something really beautiful in that we can return back to some of these classic ancient notions, like happiness in terms of eudaimonia, human flourishing, in contrast with the modern notion. And we can develop a therapia, a healing, especially within the Orthodox faith. We have this. And so I thought I'd share that with you, that this is just kind of a practical application of some of these things. Why is it important? Is this just all, intellectual games? It's not. It has a real effect on people's lives, and we should care about that. We should care about the truth, and we should ultimately care about each other and their well-being. We want all to flourish as human beings.